And for a response to all of this tonight, let's bring in our State House insiders, Antoine Seawright, our Democratic strategist, Dave Wilson, our Republican strategist. All right, guys, so the state education superintendent sending this letter to district superintendents earlier this week. Should the education department, Dave, put limits on what teachers and employees with school districts can say to students or on social media when it comes to something like the assassination of Charlie Kirk?
I think anytime you're going to turn around and glorify murder, that's a bad thing. You may not agree with somebody, and that's perfectly fine for you not to agree with someone politically, to disagree with them on religious grounds. But to turn around and do anything that puts any sort of validation on the murder of another human being is not something that should be done. It should be well understood by people who are trying to influence young minds that that's not a good thing. Now, on the issue of social media, it's a very different thing because there have been teachers who have lost their jobs in South Carolina for holding up two drinks in a hand, a drink in each hand at a party. It was posted on social media. There are some limitations that have to be there if you're going to keep some level of a public figure position, especially in the issue of education.
You know, I couldn't be more pissed off about what I'm seeing happening around the country. The same Republican parties advocated for free speech and all these other things and tried to push this idea of cancel culture, act as if it's a Democratic thing. They're doing just that. With all due respect, certainly we push back and we do not support political violence of any kind. But Charlie Kirk made a life and a living off saying some of the most dangerous, right-meat, red-wing racial things that anyone can ever imagine, including his conversations around saying that Black women are DEI hires and said that Black folks are better off doing slavery in subjective time, to say that an African-American woman who's a pilot, he should not fly, including saying the person who attempted to assassinate Paul Pelosi should be bailed out and was a hero, not to mention all the praise for January 6th. And these things have been said on the record. So we find ourselves in a moment in this country where Republicans are trying to elevate and whitewash what a person did because they supported or align with them politically. That's where I draw the line. We're not gonna have convenient speech. We should always have free speech. When Tucker Carlson and I agree, you know we're at a crossroads in this country. The same free speech that Charlie Kirk went around the country advocating for should be the same free speech applicable in this moment. And our Department of Education should squarely focus on educating our children and meeting their needs instead of worrying about what goes on in people's homes. If we want to say social media during school hours, fine. But nobody's uplifting the murder of Charlie Kirk. What people are saying is, quite frankly, highlighting what he has said throughout his career. And I don't think anything was wrong with that because we've seen that done on the other side.
Let's move on now to the South Carolina Supreme Court. Earlier this week, they did uphold the congressional lines that were drawn back in 2022. Dave, any surprise there? Because Republicans are saying that they were right all along, and this isn't a surprise to them that the court ruled this way.
It's not a surprise that the court ruled this way. It's the direction of the court at the moment. I think that when you look at this overall, it goes back to what we've been talking about several times now about the way that district lines are drawn. There's questions that are coming up about that. Even on the Republican side, you have to sit here and go, are the lines being drawn fairly? Are the lines being drawn to fully represent South Carolina? 45% of South Carolinians typically vote on the Democratic side, but we don't see that in the legislature. And I think that any move by Republicans to turn around and overstuff is only going to create infighting among Republicans because you've got, in the legislature, you've got 124 members of the House and 46 members of the Senate, and parties don't necessarily get along with each other just because they're the same party.
Well, there's an old strategy, an old saying that says, if you can't beat them, cheat them. Quite frankly, if Republicans were very comfortable with the message and the messaging that they believe in, they fought for since they've been in control of South Carolina from a political standpoint for 20 plus years, then they would not draw lines that will bleach districts and make it more favorable to them. I can't think of a better headline than the Post and Courier just a few days ago, who said that South Carolina highest court rules in favor of lines drawn to favor Republicans. That's the narrative. They drew lines that were favorable to Republicans. Republicans control the state's highest court. So no, we're not surprised. But at the end of the day, if you think the people of South Carolina are buying what you're selling, then draw maps that make a true reflection of South Carolina.
But the thing about that is, this is the way that the lines have been drawn. And if you don't like that, then demand that the laws be changed. I mean, they're following the law, Antoine. That's the whole point. The way it's set up, it's not federal. It's decided by each state how they're going to do that. So in the time periods when Democrats could have won seats, they didn't win seats. Instead, Republicans won those seats, and they ended up getting control. It's not like the Democrats all of a sudden disappeared 10 years ago.
But Dave, I'm not arguing that the maps are not racially gerrymandered or anything. That's why we filed lawsuits. What I'm arguing is, if Republicans truly believe in what they believe, you're right. Republicans have won election after election, so they get to decide what the agenda is and what's important and what's priority to South Carolina.
All right, Dave Wilson, Antoine Seawright, guys, as always, thank you so very much for your time. You can read about these stories and more right now on our website. That's WLTX.com.